I think it's easy for people to be really despairing about politics because of how divisive things are.
It's always been a few people who do most of the work, and I just want to be one of them now.
I wish more people could go through this process because I think it would make them appreciate the whole process of voting.
If you don't want transparency, you don't want sunlight, you don't want genuine public engagement, you're not going to want the CIR.
Interesting to see the ad campaign after going through this whole process. Because I'll be sitting there going, wait a minute, that's not right. Or
Production of Immense Possibilities is made possible by the generous support of the Earth and Humanity Foundation, Wendy Selden, Rogue Co-ops, a community-centered collaboration among the Ashland Food Co-op, the Grange Co-op, Rogue Credit Union, and the Medford Food Co-op, Cliff Bar and Company, Elizabeth York, and these additional members of the Immense Possibilities Community Builders Circle.
Welcome to our weekly visit with people who are creating immense possibilities for healthy communities, solutions to all kinds of challenges. I'm going to go way out on a limb and guess that you're disheartened by politics and elections these days. That's really not anything new. Back in the early 20th century, disgusted Oregonians and Californians created the first ballot initiative systems where they could bypass elected officials and put measures they care about directly on the ballot themselves, which developed its own set of problems.
We love the initiative process, but yet there are flaws. Ballot measures are oftentimes complex, confusing, hard to understand what the long-term impacts are.
We've seen a number of different initiatives kind of have a back and forth with the legislature. Too often there have been cases where people after the fact have just been like, we didn't know that's what it was, or the whole buyer's remorse issue.
I think like many Oregonians, when I get that voter's pamphlet and start flipping through the measures, it just becomes daunting because there's just so much information, much of which is just propaganda, and it's really hard to figure out who's telling the truth, who's not, who's right, and I think this process helped me figure out how to do that.
The Citizens Initiative Review brings together a cross-section of we the people, if you will, to work on figuring out what these measures are all about and then helping to inform their fellow voters.
it'd be interesting to see the ad campaign after going through this whole process. Because I'll be sitting there going, wait a minute, that's not right. Or
I think it's easy for people to be really despairing about politics because of how divisive things are. And I think what's different about the Citizens Initiative Review is it's not like that. It really is we the people coming together to work on a common agenda.
This is a national first. Nobody's done election reform in this way to date, so there are a lot of eyes on where this goes, and we hope to see people pick up on the work we've done in their home state to reform initiative process in other locations.
Well, let's get a better idea of the work they've done with the co-founder of the Citizens Initiative Review, Tyrone Reitman. Tyrone, welcome back to Immense Possibilities. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jeff. Thank you.
Why did you create the CIR?
Yeah, we created the CIR out of experience that voters want better information. That experience is borne out by what voters have said year after year. Basically, the ballot measures are often confusing, hard to understand. And then also personal experience, having worked in the initiative process and seeing firsthand how easy it is to distort truth and how hard it can be to sort fact from fiction.
So in a nutshell, how does a CIR work?
The first step is to identify what the measure or proposition is to be reviewed. In Oregon, there's a statewide commission that does that. The second step is to select the panel that actually comes together to do that reviewing. So a survey is sent out to registered voters. People who can participate respond. And then based upon those anonymous responses, we build a demographically balanced group of 20 to 24 citizens. The deliberation takes place over the course of around 3.5 to 5 days. And at the conclusion of that deliberative process, that panel of 20, 24 voters determines what are the key facts that everybody should know, and what are the key arguments pro and con that everybody should really weigh when they make their own decision. And that's sent out to the public.
Are there participants who walk into the room with a strong opinion to begin with and others that feel completely undecided?
Yeah, I mean, you can think about it like a bell curve. There are people that come into the room with an opinion about the issue, for and against, and a bunch of people in the middle that are undecided. And what's great about high-quality deliberation is that people's opinions move as they go through the process of learning about the facts, about process of actually talking with fellow voters about policy. In every CR that we've run to date, we've watched that happen. It's been validated by a pretty incredible research team that studied our work since 2010.
Now, you're saying something really big here, because there's also research that says when people are challenged, they tend to dig in, no matter what the date is, and that's not encouraging for democracy. So what is it that you do that makes it a little easier for people to change their mind?
When you ask people to sit down and in good faith provide a service for the rest of the public and honestly deliberate about it, the capacity that's developed within deliberation enables people to shift views more easily than all of those studies that I've also seen that say, you get a set of facts, you might just dig in if it's contrary to what you believe. Once you get over that initial sense of, who are these other people that I'm working with, what are we here to do, there's tremendous ownership and pride in the work that's been done. And we've seen just some incredible panelists participate in this and come away pretty fired up about participating in politics in general.
Now, we're talking about gathering a group of people, giving them good information on a topic, and then having them deliberate to a decision. Some would say, we've already got that. They're called state legislatures and Congress. So is the CIR a tacit admission that those institutions aren't working?
I'd say direct democracy is the admission that there's something else was needed. We view the CIR basically as fulfilling the promise of direct democracy by providing the kind of information that the public wants and deserves to make decisions around these massive statewide policies, city policies, county policies.
There are those who are ready to take a giant step towards direct democracy and use the new technology, our online capabilities, to inform people and have them make laws through their voting online. What's your take on that?
Democracy requires deliberation, is my point of view on this. I think there are tremendous tools out there to enhance the level of information that people have. There are tremendous tools out there to inform lawmakers about the opinions of the public. When it comes to lawmaking, though, that has to be merged with deliberation. It has to be merged with the consideration of other points of view. I think deliberation is a hallmark of democracy, and I'd be wary of removing that from lawmaking.
So what's not to like about this? Voice of the people, everybody supports the voice of the people. Getting well informed and oriented on an issue, getting a chance to deliberate and come up with a determination. Who would push back against this?
We're talking about politics and communications, and I think the best example of who would not like something like this comes from a conversation I had with a high-powered political consultant. And she said to me, I work for generally progressive causes in this particular example. And by and large, I would tell my clients running initiatives that deliberation is a good thing. This public deserves better information, and generally it's a good thing to do. But there's that, it's 90% of the time. But there's 10% of the time where my job, as her speaking, is literally to pull the wool over the public's eyes. And it's that 10% that I think is kind of the common denominator in most active initiative states that's a challenge for this kind of work. So if you don't want transparency, you don't want sunlight, you don't want genuine public engagement, you're not going to want the CIR.
What if you're a legislator who might feel that this is poaching on their prerogative in their territory and they're the experts and not sure we want the riffraff in on this?
It's a pretty contentious relationship between sitting lawmakers, elected representatives, and direct democracy. And they're often in conflict. So I think lawmakers view greater information in the general sense around direct democracy is a really good thing.
The notion that you need good information to self-govern well, it's pretty radical.
It is, it's phenomenally not, but it's
What do you get personally out of this work?
Every time we run a CIR and I'm able to watch an incredible group of 20, 24 randomly selected members of the public come together and, after about a day say, oh, this is what we're here to do and we're going to do a bang-up job, is just an extremely empowering and motivational force.
What is the immense possibility of the Citizens Initiative Review?
I think fulfilling the promise of direct democracy in a nutshell.
Tyrone Reitman is the director of Healthy Democracy Oregon. Thanks for the work you're doing. It's fascinating. Thanks for telling us about it here.
Likewise, happy to be here. Thanks, Jeff.
I'm probably the most apolitical person in the world. That's why I was so shocked when they picked me. I'm guilty of being swayed by ads one way or the other, and I know that's wrong now after seeing how skewed the information is from either side. I wish more people could go through this process because I think it would make them appreciate the whole process of voting. And it really makes me mad when people say, oh, my vote doesn't count, because it does.
Let's take this a little deeper with a couple more people who've been involved in the CIR process. Lisa Ivory is a stage actor and director, and Katie Roderick is a private piano teacher. And both were asked to be part of a panel reviewing a proposed ban on GMO crop cultivation in Jackson County, Oregon. Lisa and Katie, welcome to Immense Possibilities. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Katie, what was your attitude when first called to do this process?
I accepted right away. I was excited to be able to be part of a process and to see what was going to happen with tons of different people and how we were going to come together.
So Lisa, from the start, you were gung-ho to do this process?
Yeah, I was. I wanted to put my money where my mouth was because I saw things going ways that didn't make me thrilled. And I thought, well, what am I doing? What am I actually doing? And so here was my opportunity to give up 3 full days of work and do this, to do my part.
Tell me about the information part of the process. That can be tough, getting to a point where you can start to deliberate because you have a common set of facts. How well was that done?
I thought the facilitators, Tyrone and all of the facilitators who worked with us, were really helpful in identifying how we were going to winnow things out and what criteria we would use. And it's incredibly helpful in now going forward. I wish Congress was required to do this because all of the people who spoke to us, the experts who spoke to us, had a dog in the fight. And so we had to kind of winnow that out.
Can you tell us about 1 or 2 moments that were really powerful for you in that several days where you saw somebody shift in an interesting way, that you shifted in an interesting way, something that kind of reflected the power of this process for you?
One of the proponents really taught me that being attached emotionally and upset is really detrimental to the whole process and to your argument, and it's not useful at all. So it really allowed me, it was like an example of how not to be in this whole process.
Do you think that's permanent?
I hope it is. What does it actually do, not what may it do? And what might happen, what has happened in Mendocino County, in Marin County, in Santa Cruz County. There haven't been any costs. All these things, just to...
You don't think emotion is our friend as we deliberate towards decisions for the public good?
No, I think it's actually really detrimental.
How about you, Katie? Did this have an effect on the way you will look at future issues?
It definitely has. I think the criteria that the CIR put in place of finding facts out and putting presentable information forward has completely changed how I look at another ballot measure and when I'm doing my research.
One of the reasons people are so cynical is they say the big money can buy as much of the airwaves as they want and put out pretty much whatever they want to stoke our emotion, to avoid facts, to obscure facts. What would you say to someone who says, I don't think we can do this experiment in self-government very well because of that, all of that big money influence that's not attached to the facts?
Don't give up yet. Local is best. Just if you stay within your own county and you look at what's affecting you right now, that's really, I think, the most effective way to impact legislation.
Do you think about politics and your role as a citizen differently than before you did this process?
I do. I definitely take part more so, and for the community we have a few surveys that go out, and even the people at the farmers market that want to get out information, I definitely gravitate more towards that now than I did before.
It's always been a few people who do most of the work, and I just want to be one of them now.
What would you say to friends who've just about given up on our form of government?
I would say don't give up now. Look into your community. Don't be looking over the fence. Just look in your own backyard and get as much information as you can that's unbiased, that's fact-based, and isn't emotional. And go to your community center and see what's going on. Stay informed, and I think that's the best thing that you can do.
If people say that is just too much work, I'm so busy and I'm doing this, that, and I barely get enough sleep and I don't have time to fit that in, what would you say?
This is your community, this is your home, this is where you live. You know, if it takes a little bit of time, so be it, but it's better than sitting and doing nothing and then having to reap the consequences that could potentially come after.
Lisa Ivory and Katie Roderick were participants in a CIR panel last year. Thank you two for coming and tell us about it. Really appreciate it.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much for having us.
The American public is far less polarized than Congress, and when people are asked to make policy prescriptions, to a striking extent, they think about the common good, not just about what's in their own self-interest. There's lots of research showing that.
That's Stephen Cull, founder and president of a movement called Voice of the People, launching the idea at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Stephen Cull joins us now from his office in Washington. Stephen Cull, welcome to Immense Possibilities.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a brief overview of Voice of the People, please.
Well, Voice of the People seeks to give the people a greater voice in government, in policymaking. This is really consistent with what the founders had in mind for the Republic. But what really has happened is that the people have been marginalized as special interests have had increasing influence over the policymaking process. So our goal is to bring that voice back, to have it really be a factor at the table so that every member of Congress hears from a citizen cabinet, which is a representative sample of the people.
How do you create an environment where a citizen with no particular background on these issues can study a complex issue sufficiently? Supposedly, we delegate that task to our elected representatives.
We find that we can actually distill many complex issues down to a process that takes maybe 25 minutes to go through, where you get the basic facts and you hear the key arguments. They're not going to be experts, but they will understand the basic issues, because underneath most policy issues are some core value issues. And the whole idea is to give people enough information so that they have a handle on the issue, so that they can bring their values to bear on that issue. Now, we're not saying that members of Congress should follow what the citizen cabinet concludes in a kind of mechanical way, but they should know what it is. And again, this is part of what the founders had said. They thought that it was very important for the reason of the people to have a lot of influence on government, or the sense of the people.
There is a lot of agreement that narrow moneyed interests these days have too much sway over governance. Do you see this as a meaningful response to that?
Absolutely. If a member of Congress is under the influence of a special interest, they can just say, well, this is what I think ought to happen. But if in fact a representative sample of their citizens is coming to another conclusion, then that's going to raise a whole new point of view, and they will need to in some way engage that.
Have you asked legislators, what will it take for you to take these findings very seriously? And if you have, what have they said?
There's a lot of interest. They really want to know. They want to know what their constituents think. Now, how they're going to respond to it, of course, will depend upon what they hear. But I think that they will be surprised to see how intelligent the responses are coming from the public as a whole.
Does this experience give you a stronger idea that people supposedly on the left and people supposedly on the right agree on key issues more than we think they do?
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of common ground between the left and the right. They really dislike the process where, you have one value on the left, one value on the right, and then they fight, and then it's a power struggle to determine which one comes out, as opposed to it being more of a problem-solving process that takes both values into account.
Stephen, has your work with Voice of the People affected your level of hope for the future of this country and our ability to govern ourselves?
Well, I've become much more confident in the ability of the people to solve problems. What I've seen is that they're able to reason, that they're able to take many factors into account and come up with very good solutions. And what's really interesting is they do think in terms of the common good, just as the founders hoped they would. But to bring a new voice to the table that is actually thinking in a holistic way about the issues, thinking in terms of the common good, and showing some wisdom in the process.
Stephen Cull is founder and co-director of Voice of the People. Stephen, thanks for joining us, telling us about your work. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
From the Father of creation, we got one love, one heart, So let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright.
Masihlanganeni sonke sibe munye.
And that's it for this edition of Immense Possibilities. You can find more information or send us suggestions at immensepossibilities.org or visit our Facebook page and like and share us there. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeff Golden. Until next time, please do what you can do. Thanks for watching to learn about tonight's Immense Possibility. You can watch any of our past programs anytime at immensepossibilities.org.
The SOU House experience is really an opportunity for students to get out of the classroom and engage the community in solving real-world problems.
Houses are about a spirit of adventure. Maybe that's rafting or building a house, but it's also about the adventure of figuring out what comes next.
Get involved, make a difference in the world.
Get connected, join a house.